you touched on it a little bit yesterday, talking about Doug Kingsmore, and the players have even kind of touched on it, making this a home field advantage. How much does that matter in college baseball?
I think it matters a lot. I mean, you talk about having a strategy to control the controllables in a hostile environment being an uncontrollable. So when you play in packed stadiums and the crowd is engaged and they consider themselves an active participant, it creates a huge advantage, because playing at this level, college kids 18 to 23, the crowd can create a physiological response inside of a player, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, and cause them to internally speed up. The heart starts beating faster, their breathing gets more shallow, their eyes get shifty. I mean, they just get sped up, and it happens to every athlete at some point or another, and it could be a multitude of things. Umpire making a bad call, or crowd noise. So yeah, we'll need DKS rocking, because we want them to feel like they are the 10th player on the field for us.
Can you remember a time in your stops where you think you walked out of a game and go, man, the crowd made a difference tonight?
Yeah, every year. I mean, I could literally go through every season and give you examples of that. Yeah, there's numerous times. And it's real. I mean, speaking from an experience as a player to a coach, and having talking some of our players through it, and being able to. That's why we talk about when we play on the road, the importance of playing well on the road, because you can sometimes take the crowd out of it. But when the crowd is into it, it's something that the opposing team makes a concerted effort to just keep their energy on them and on each other, and really you gotta try to slow the game down a little bit.
I heard somewhere this is a Lipscomb regional. I think you might have mentioned that a couple times yesterday. How is it, and how willing and able is this group to buy into those sort of things? I've heard it the last week alone of things you're saying that they're just repeating, they're buying in. Why does that work? Why is that necessary to have guys that just so readily buy into that mindset and follow that lead?
I appreciate them buying into it and repeating that, but it's the truth. It's not coach speak. That's who we're playing. So.
But I mean, even past the Lipscomb thing. I mean, like there's so many things that we all thought Caden Grice's thing was the you can call us hot, you can call it whatever. And then I heard you say that post game. So like there's just this give and take that's really happening down here.
Yeah. Look, the players have been, from day one, the buy-in has been there. And I think that's why we were optimistic about this group from the start. I mean, it was, we knew they were physically talented, but I think their willingness to be all in on a shared language, a shared mentality, standards of the program, this buy-in to just playing one pitch at a time, and, all of it. They have to say it and think it, but then actually do it, and they are. And as a new staff, we certainly appreciate it. And I love the approach that everyone took. I mean, the staff took the approach of, we're going to wrap our arms around you guys, because we're all Clemson family, and we're all Clemson baseball now, and it doesn't matter, how we all got here, but we're here. And they took the approach of, they might not have signed up necessarily for that, but they were in it now, and they were hungry, and they were driven to have the team that we have now. And this is the potential of this group, and that's kind of how you define success, is for an individual player is did you reach your potential, and as a team, did it reach its potential? And we're playing close to or at our potential now, which is great to see.
At the beginning of the season, you talked about several positions being open and everybody was playing for it. Once the outfield got kind of consolidated and you got things settled down out there, how much did that feed the rest of the team and getting all the pieces in place?
Yeah, I think any season, any baseball team, really any sport, once you kind of have a consistent lineup where everyone coming down to the field, knows, kind of has a pretty good idea what the lineup's going to be before they even look at it. people can kind of settle into a groove and just get comfortable in their at bats or in their defensive play, and just start to let their personalities come through a little bit. There was, I don't know how many straight games to start the year, probably the first half of the season, where it felt like we had a lot of moving parts to the lineup. I was still looking up what number the guy was, and now I know what their numbers are. I don't have to look at the roster anymore. So it's just a good feeling when you have stability and you get consistent production, and we consistently rotate the right fielder around. But even in the revolving door of that right fielder, it's been consistent because it's pretty much been the same three guys. So even though there are still some guys that are interchangeable, it's we found consistency in the lineup, and now we're finding consistent production throughout the lineup as well.
And asking the different guys about Be a Dude the last few days, they all seem to light up and really carry that with them. What's the genesis of that, and how have you seen them embrace and thrive with that?
It's just it's a good word, when you just tell someone, be a dude. Like I say that to my 13-year-old, my 10-year-old, we talk about it here, we talk about it in recruiting, like, guy's a good player, he's a dude, and so we talk about being a good dude off the field and be a dude on the field, and everybody kind of has their own interpretation of that, but I think the players light up because they know that it's that's high praise, and so we have that on the little sign system that we have. I've used that saying all the time with the signs that we have, and then they look down and it says be a dude, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna be a dude here, I'm gonna get it done, but it's also to keep them loose and having fun out there and not take ourselves too seriously, but it's a good phrase, and we'll stick with it.
Any thoughts on how you're going to handle the pitching staff this weekend, or a possible rotation?
Yeah, we'll go kind of the same way we did with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday games this past weekend. So we got Gordo leading us off, and Caden for game 2, and then we'll just kind of see where we're at. But that's this time of the year. The goal is to just keep this team together as long as we can, and that was what one thing I didn't really like it at the time when our Michigan teams would say that in 2019, hey, we've got 2 guaranteed games together, and didn't really like how that sounded, but they really grasped onto that, and then it was this notion of, hey, let's see how long we can keep the team together, because this is fun, and let's play as long as we can together, and I think this group embodies that a little bit as well. So from a pitching standpoint, we'll map it out one game at a time, but this time of year you really can't really do preparation multiple games in advance, because it's when it's these types of tournaments where it's one win or 2 advance, you really have to sell out and do whatever it takes to come out on top in each individual game. So we won't hold anything back. We won't hold anyone back. Probably the only guy that won't be available to pitch in game 1 would be Grice, but I say that and we might use him. So, but that's kind of going into it. That's just how we're thinking.
Rob Hughes, expect to have him?
Yeah, he's good. Yep. He just his low back stiffened up a little bit, but he's fine now.
Speaking of talent, too.
Yeah, he says he feels great, and he's throwing on Wednesday. That's tomorrow, so he'll throw a bullpen tomorrow, and expecting him to feel fine, and to him be back on the active roster and be good for at least an inning or 2 this weekend. And but we'll see how it goes tomorrow. If he doesn't feel good tomorrow, we won't risk it.
Speaking of Grice, he's racked up some personal accolades. What are you most proud about his season thus far?
The teammate that he is. Everyone knows he's a superstar, and got a chance to play both ways at the highest level. This is one of the most physically gifted and talented kids in college baseball, but the teammate that he is really, I think, what allows him to play at the top of his potential as well. He's just put his arms around other guys. He's put his arms around some of the freshmen, and shared his knowledge and and information that he's got with them and help them formulate their routine and how they can develop and be good players. And he's just engaged with everyone on the team. You see, the risk is that someone in their draft year just, locked in on putting up personal stats and accolades for their own personal gain. But he's a true team guy, and he's turned into a glue guy on the team as well. So very proud of him for that. And he's playing with a smile on his face. That's another thing I'm proud of him about. Sometimes guys in their junior year, they're very serious. They look like they're solving a math equation when they're out there. But he's all smiles. He's having fun. He looks like his 12-year-old self, and that's great to see. And it certainly is helping him and helping us.
Erik, I know it's always about more than just one guy, but the winning really started when Billy Amick was inserted into the lineup almost as a everyday player. How can you quantify the impact that he's had on the lineup?
Yeah, I guess you quantify it with wins and losses, like you said, but his story is incredible. His story is an inspiration to everyone that isn't a starter on opening day, and everyone who's maybe second or third team on the depth chart, that keep working hard, stick with it. You never know when your name's going to get called. When you get an opportunity, take advantage of it. And that is maybe one of the best stories of a role player turned into a star player in a very short amount of time, who just needed an opportunity, and he got it, and he took advantage of it. And it used to be we were thinking, who should we put in the middle of the order to hit behind Grice, and now we're not going to make a lineup without Billy Amick in the 5-hole.
Jimmy Bellinger. I think 3 out of the 4 starters you used in the ACC tournament were sophomores and freshmen, and then a two-way player. So how do you quantify what he's been able to do as the pitching coach, putting those pieces together and making this work?
Jimmy's a rock star pitching coach. He's just a one of the best in the business at what he does, and it's the simplistic genius to his approach. Every coach, whether you're a pitching coach, hitting coach, head coach, it's just, you need a system, and he's got a fantastic system. And it's to oversimplify it, it's throw strikes, show toughness, and the players have bought into that. He demands 64% strikes, whether it's in the bullpen, whether it's in scrimmages or in games. It's all connected, and they want him out there with just big time body language, pitching with tempo, having some mound presence. And it's just, that's the competitive Long Islander in him, and he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and I love it. But he cares. His care level is off the charts. His system works. It's worked everywhere he's been. And we have a pitching staff of guys that have good stuff. I mean, it was an arsenal of arms that got good fastballs, good breaking balls, and I think where he's really helped them is help them be in the zone a whole lot more, and just to harness their stuff and command it better, and that's had a ton of success. So I love his approach. I love the way he goes about it. He's one of the best for a reason, and it's been a huge addition to this team.
Yeah, he talks about back when he was a 23-year-old, the day in the car with you. He kept in touch. Was there a chance you were going to try to get him at Michigan if he could? Was it kind of fortuitous that he was available after what happened at Florida State?
Yeah, I don't think we would have been able to get him at Michigan. I mean, he had kind of advanced himself to, he was an SEC, ACC guy, and he had once he had left Maryland for Kentucky, and then Kentucky for Florida State, and the success that he had, Maryland, Kentucky, Florida State, it was like he had cemented his place as one of the top pitching coaches in the country. So I think he's one of those guys that everybody would love to have, but luckily his wife Tiffany and his 3 kids, one that's just a few weeks old, are all in the Clemson community, and I think he's a guy that hopefully his next move would be to run his own program as a head coach, and hopefully not anytime soon, but he's that type of talent where he could. And look, I mean, it's what you want. You want to surround yourself with great people, and he's one of the best.
To stay on the personal note, I wanted to ask you about that 23 that you wear. and the sentimentality of that for you?
Yeah. So speaking of the very best, Nick Schnabel also wears number 23. He and I were teammates at East Carolina. We've been fortunate to coach alongside each other for 11 years now. He is also one of the very best of the very best at what he does with recruiting, hitting, coaching infield. But he and I both played for one of the very best in Keith LeClaire. And he and I both would there's no amount of money that we would trade our playing experience for in the 2 years at East Carolina. There's no amount of money. I don't care how many zeros are on that check. Push it aside, rip it up every time, because it's just an experience that is priceless. The relationships, the friendships, there's nothing I wouldn't trade for it. And that's why we coach. Want our players to be able to say the same thing someday, that their college experience was priceless, and they wouldn't trade it for the world.
What sort of things are we seeing from you that you got from LeClaire?
Well, coincidentally, it's all the Jack Leggett coaching tree. Like he is the solid oak tree that has produced all kinds of branches, and I feel very blessed to have only been a part of those branches. So playing for Keith LeClaire, Coach LeClaire played for Coach Leggett at Western Carolina, then coached with him and took over the Western Carolina program when Coach Leggett came here. And then Coach LeClaire is the one who got me the job here as a volunteer coach 21 years ago. So I got to see the coaching side of Seven's Tree, so the other side of the curtain, and met Tim Corbin and Kevin O'Sullivan, and talk about a 24-year-old kid, getting lucky being in the right place at the right time. And so, that was back in the day too, where our offices were right over there, and Coach Corbin, Sully, and myself, we shared a small office. It's like as big as this area we're standing in. So our desks were right next to each other. But it was the accelerated learning curve that I'm appreciative for, because I got to share an office with those guys every day, all day. And Coach Corbin, was and still is one of those guys that gets in the office very early and leaves very late. I didn't know what I was signing up for at the time, but I told him I was going to work the same hours as him. So found ourselves here, 14, 15 hours a day, most days of the week, almost all days of the week. But it was just that opportunity to learn and to grow. And then I was very fortunate at 24 years old that Coach Corbin then, who's a proud branch of Coach Leggett's tree, to go with him. And so, and then from there, got the opportunity to be a head coach. So it's all comes back to Coach Leggett, his tree, how many players he's impacted, how many coaches he's developed, and how many players they've impacted. But yeah, it's very proud, because it's one of the consistent themes of that tree is just the care level and treating the program like a big family. And so it really aligns with Clemson, with how the athletic department is, and just very proud to be a part of it.
There's a lot of ways.
What is the significance of 23 for both of you?
That's Coach LeClaire's number.
That's what I thought.
Sorry, yep.
Last question.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of ways that you obviously are carrying it forward, but what was the value of wearing that 20? What was that? Something that, did you guys decide together? Was that a conversation?
So Coach LeClaire tragically passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease in July of 2006. He was diagnosed in August of 2001. And, there were 6 of us that played on those 1999 and 2000 East Carolina teams that decided to be college coaches to continue his inspiration and continue his legacy. So we actually all wear number 23, and it's Coach Schnabel and myself, the head coach at East Carolina right now, Cliff Godwin, the recruiting coordinator at UCLA, Bryant Ward. And there were a couple others along the way, Ben Sanderson, Joe Hastings, and others, but the 4 of us are still coaching at the Power 5 level, and that's why we do it. We made a promise to Coach LeClaire to get to Omaha for him, because he never got to go, but more importantly to continue that inspiration, that legacy, to allow the players that we get to coach to have the same experience that we have.
All right. Thank you, Coach.